Good afternoon, class. Today I will be discussing what immigration reform is in two very important immigration policies known as amnesty and deferred action. On June 15, 2012, many individuals with dreams of being able to go back to school were given the hope of furthering their education. These individuals are now known as the Dreamers, and most of them are living the American dream as we speak today. I personally am very interested in immigration reform because I was one of those dreamers that was finally given the chance to go back to school after having to put my life on hold for 4 years. The opportunity of immigration reform allowed me to go through the process of applying for deferred action. Researching all of the requirements for deferred action enabled me to realize that immigration reform can help out our country in many positive ways, because most of individuals that are illegal want this country to be their home and love it just as much as any American citizen does. Immigration reform is a very complicated topic, but to know its origins and hear about the different policies will enable you to realize that immigration reform has impacted our country in many ways. Many of you have expressed your feelings about immigration reform in a negative way from the survey results. About 55% of the class agreed that securing our borders was not a priority. However, 100% of the class felt that judging someone by their appearance was ethically wrong. Immigration reform may be one of the least important political issues at the moment, but it does lead to many benefits for our country. The information about to be presented to you could make you change the aspect of immigration reform. If not, then don't worry, because what encourages everyone to come to this country in the first place is that we are free to think what we want. In the next few minutes, I will be discussing what immigration reform is and two of the most common types of immigration policies. To begin with, let's discuss what immigration reform is. Immigration reform is a political term for proposed charges and changes in U.S. immigration policy. Immigration reform has been a key part in American politics since the early years of colonization. According to an article assessed on June 10, 2014 on the Opposing Viewpoints website entitled Immigration by Roger Daniels, the first Immigration Reform Act was passed in 1790. Immigration reform became very strict from the 1800s to the end of World War II. It also decreased crime rates and fraudulent situations. Moreover, now that we have discussed what immigration reform is, let's analyze the first immigration reform policy of amnesty. Amnesty is a pardon granted by the government, usually for a political offense. As described in the article on the Opposing Viewpoints website entitled Pardon by Gale Encyclopedia of American Law, 3rd edition, assessed on June 11, 2014, an amnesty is passed only by the current President of the United States. It must be equal for all candidates that meet the requirements. The very first amnesty to be passed took place in 1801. According to an article from the Opposing Viewpoints website entitled Doc Amnesty, assessed on June 11, 2014, the first amnesty was passed by President Thomas Jefferson to grant pardons to all citizens convicted of violating the Alien and Sedition Acts. The latest amnesty to be granted was in 1986. According to an article from the Opposing Viewpoints website entitled Immigration Laws and Policies since the 1980s, assessed on June 11, 2014, the latest amnesty was granted by President Ronald Reagan. The amnesty of 1986 reduced the number of undocumented aliens by 2.7 million. Furthermore, let's go over another immigration reform policy known as deferred action. Deferred action is a removal of legal action against an individual for a limited amount of time. According to the U.S. Citizenship, Immigration and Services website, assessed on June 12, 2014, Homeland Security decides the requirements individuals must meet to be accepted for deferred action. Individuals that get accepted for deferred action are allowed most benefits that U.S. citizens have. On June 15, 2012, the very first case of deferred action for illegal immigrants was announced. The first batch of renewals for deferred action actually starts September of this year, of 2014. In conclusion, immigration reform immigration policy affects all individuals in our country. Today we have examined what immigration reform is in 2 immigration policies known as amnesty and deferred action. All of you had your own beliefs in regards to immigration reform prior to this speech. I hope that you now can visualize how immigration can help out our country in the next couple years. It may not solve all of America's issues, but it does allow our society to grow in knowledge. Most immigrants that come to this country just want the chance to contribute to make it even better than it already is. After all, what made this country great was that so many immigrants came here and improvised how we lived. Thank you for taking the time to hear my informative speech about immigration reform.